5 to go.
Okay, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Perth County Council, this second day of March. I'd like to call the meeting to order. If everyone could please bow their head for a moment of Richardson. Favor. Oh, sorry.
Just noticed a note up there from Counselor. They can't hear us.
Oh. Okay.
Okay, now we can.
Okay, you can hear us now? Yep, okay. Sorry, gentlemen.
Sorry.
And everyone else, oh, that's fine. That's fine. Do we need to back up and do that again, or we just keep going?
Keep going.
Okay, we'll keep going. All right, consent agenda. There are 10 items under the consent agenda. Is there anyone who would have questions on any of those items or want something pulled? No? Okay, then we have a
I'm gonna bring one up then.
Okay, Councillor Aitchison has one.
Look at the number. And the number will be 6.8, school board elections.
Okay, you want that pulled and?
No, I can discuss it right now.
Okay, go ahead.
So when I first saw that, I thought, well, that's no big deal. Then different people have said, so the different municipalities had no municipal election as far as councillors or mayor. They still had to run the election for a school board representative, which cost them a ton of money, had nothing to do with them. They thought they'd perhaps contribute enough to the school as it was without having to pay for it. So that's why I just wanted to bring it up and see what people thought.
Okay, anyone else? Councillor Orr?
I totally agree with Jim that it's one of those where the school boards, I mean, they are funded by the province, but we also are losing all our own funding. We're doing a lot for them. I would like to see it's a clarification of maybe the line in the budget, but I would like the school boards to put maybe something towards and I guess it doesn't really affect the county, but it affects the lower tiers.
It doesn't affect the county at all
No.
because they don't run elections. It's the lower tiers. And if you don't have an election, per se, for a mayor or councillors, and there was a lot of municipalities never.
Yeah.
Then if they still have to run the school board election, they're paying the full shot.
So do you want to pull that and support it?
Well, I would make a motion to do that.
Okay, well, let's deal with the others first and then we will. Oh, no, we'll do that one first.
I'll make a motion, we pull it and support it.
Okay, seconder, Councillor McKenzie. Any more comments or questions on that? Councillor McKenzie?
Well, I hadn't thought about the comment that Jim made, but it is a good comment. I was thinking the only time that would have an impact on us would be if there was a by-election and you had to run a by-election solely for the school board. But Jim makes a good point. If you didn't have a municipal election to run, if nobody was running, just the school boards, then you've got those costs. So there are some points to be taken there.
Okay. Anyone else? All in favor of that motion? Carried. Okay, then we'll deal with the rest of them. So that council receives the consent agenda items 6.1 to 6.10 with the exception of 6.8 and approves the February 16, 2023 council minutes. Moved by Councillor McDermott, second by Councillor Kaisenberg. Favor? Carried. Okay, now we move to public meetings, hearings, and delegations. So we have a motion that the regular council meeting for the purpose of holding a public meeting at approximately 9:06 a.m. Need a mover and a seconder for that, moved by Councillor Smith, second by Councillor Duncan, all in favor? Carried. Okay, so I do have an agenda, here we go. Call the meeting to order. If you have pecuniary interest, you can disclose that now. We need a motion to confirm the agenda of the meeting moved by Councillor Ora and Mackenzie. All in favor? Carried. We need approval of the minute from the last public meeting of January 26th. Moved by Councillor Aitchison, second by Councillor McDermott. All in favor? Carried. Okay, now we're going to move to the reports and receiving comments. So we have OPA 211 read, and I think we have Mr. Bice with us this morning to give the report. Well, John, if you'd like to join us up here at the table, that'd be great. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Warden and Council. The first thing I'd just like to mention is there was an error in the bylaw that was sent, the agenda package. We've since fixed that, and the new bylaw was sent to Sean yesterday. But I just want to disclose that first and foremost. Okay, so let's get into it here. The official plan amendment number 211 was presented at West Perth Council previously. They've since sent their endorsement. So the applicant is Reginald Reed. Location is just south of Fullerton on part lots 12, 13 concession West Mitchell Road. The next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, so like I said, the subject lands are just south of Fullerton. As you can see in the settlement boundary border on the image to the right. We're on Perth Road 163. The property is designated primary and secondary aggregate resource, floodplain and earth science ANSI in the Perth County official plan. Go to the next one, please. Thanks. Here's the land use plan, Schedule A-211. So the property is also zoned agriculture 2, A2, and floodplain in the West Perth zoning bylaw. And just for reference, the A2 zone applies to potential sand and gravel deposits identified within the Perth County official plan. You can go to the next one. There's some text there, but that's okay. So an official plan amendment is being sought here, is being requested in order to construct a single detached home. And the applicant wishes to remove the aggregate designation from the lands and designate the property within an agricultural designation. The primary and secondary aggregate resource designation does not permit the construction of a single detached dwelling. This primary and secondary aggregate resource designation is intended to identify areas with potential sand and gravel deposits, and it limits development that would hinder the extraction of these resources. The agricultural designation permits residential development as accessory to an agricultural use, and in some cases, it permits limited non-agricultural related circumstances. The change in designation is the first step towards permitting a dwelling, and a subsequent related zoning bylaw amendment is a requirement as well. The change of designation would remove the lands from being reserved for the aggregate extraction operation. Not sure what's happening, but that's all right. We'll proceed. Essentially, this slide was supposed to show you essentially what the earth science ANSIs look like. So an earth science ANSI is really, it's for this significant representation of bedrock, fossil, and landforms in Ontario. There's two that cover this property. The first being I believe it was the Fullerton Moraine ANSI. And there's a second one that was up on the slide here that I can't fully remember at this point. That's okay. We'll go to the next slide. Hopefully maybe it's not.
John, sorry, through the warden, if I may, I'm gonna send the PowerPoint version of the slide deck to Tristan, then we'll get back to that.
Sure.
So apologies, something must have been lost in the conversion.
Would you like me to wait then?
If you don't mind, or if you have something else you want to touch on in the meantime.
Yep.
Okay. You should have that in your email now.
Technology's great when it works.
It is really good when it works.
Swear the slides had content.
I would say.
I can hold that part. I didn't see that.
Perfect.
Warden, I'll get started again. All right, so you can see here the two ANSIs that I had mentioned, Fullerton Moraine ANSI and the North Thames Valley ANSI. The Perth County official plan permits development within these ANSIs, such that development will not negatively affect the overall character of the geological feature or features in this case. We can go to the next one. Thank you. This slide is just essentially to show kind of the update that we've noticed in the ARIP or the aggregate resources inventory for Perth County. So there was a couple studies that were submitted with this application. As you can see above, MDS was the first. MDS 1 was calculated from nearby livestock facilities. And this calculation indicated that there would be no negative impacts provided through the creation of a dwelling here. Stage 1 and 2 archaeological assessment was also submitted, which identified no further investigation required. And then an aggregate impact assessment was also submitted. And this study concluded that the subject lands are not characterized by any potential primary or secondary deposits in the ARIP, as I had previously just mentioned. And it's actually a tertiary deposit based on the new up-to-date mapping that used different parameters. And I believe it was done in 2013 and 14. As you can see here on the map, property is just north of actually that green section, north of that second tributary there, and it would classify as a tertiary deposit. So the agricultural designation is appropriate for the lands because it is within a prime ag area. It's considered prime ag lands as the soil classification is classification 1. It's outside the settlement area, although it does border the settlement area, it is classified as outside the Fullerton settlement area. And the boundary of that settlement cannot be expanded without a comprehensive review, which was not undertaken as part of this application. The agricultural designation is considered desirable as it provides for circumstances that would permit the dwelling that is proposed. Go to the next one. Thanks. This slide just kind of highlights the correspondence that has been received at this point in time. Notice of application was submitted or was sent out on January 17th. Municipality of West Perth has provided an endorsement letter dated February 14th. Planning staff have received correspondence from UTRCA as well as Enbridge Gas, and that was included as the application package for all of you. We can go into that a bit more if that's brought up. But at this point in time, I will conclude and take any questions.
Okay, any questions? No questions. Okay, thanks, John. We do have a motion that council receives the Perth County Official Plan Amendment number 211-Read report for lands described as part of lot 12 and 13, concession West Mitchell Road as RP 4R-3428, part 1, Fullerton Ward, Municipality of West Perth, and that council receives comment.
Ask to see if there's any comments on it.
Okay,
Yeah.
we're going to back up a little bit. Any comments from anyone here?
See if there's any received from the public.
So no comments from the public. Okay. Allow me to back up. All right, Sean, sorry. Do you want me to start over? So council receives the Perth County Official Plan Amendment number 211-Read report for lands described as parcel lot 12 and 13, concession West Mitchell Road as RP 44R-3428, part 1, Fullerton Ward, Municipality of West Perth, and that council receives comments from the public for consideration regarding official plan amendment number 211 to the County of Perth official plan affecting lands described as part lot 12 and 13, concession West Mitchell Road as RP 44R-3428, part 1, Fullerton Ward, Municipality of West Perth. And we need a mover and a seconder, moved by Councillor McKenzie, second by Councillor Trankowski. Any more comments or questions? All in favor? Carried. Okay, so the public meeting be adjourned at 9:18. Moved by Councillor Aitchison and Councillor McDermott. All in favor? Carried. Okay, and then we have a motion to go back into regular council. The regular council reconvene at approximately 9:18. Moved by Councillor Smith, second by Councillor Hessenberg. All in favor? Carried. Okay, now we're going to have a presentation from Stratford.
Kelly Stone.
Yep. Social Services Housing Program, and we welcome Kim McElroy and Kelly Stone and all their staff. So if you would like to come up and take a seat at the table, that'd be great. And then the floor is yours to begin.
It's nice to see everybody. Jeff Wilson sends his regrets. Unfortunately, he was delayed on a vacation, but I'm sure his flight will be coming in. I've got Kelly Stone, so we're going to pitch it for him this morning. This may be a review for some of the individuals around the table, and it might be information, but we're going to give an overview about the housing homeless planning and programs for Stratford, Cook County, and St. Mary's. I'd like to start out with our vision, and just a reminder that our vision is everyone has the right to a home that is safe, suitable, and affordable, and to supports that help them keep their home. So that's what we base our decisions on. I'll go through a little background. If we could just move to the housing spectrum. So again, we keep with the times and we keep with what the government is saying, and and up until recently, we called this the housing spectrum. And this is the initial idea is that we watch individuals move through the housing spectrums, and where they started on the spectrum, the end goal was home ownership. So we with this city of Stratford Social Services CMSM we deal with individuals all across this spectrum. I will say, when you hear from me in about a year, I think you're going to hear the term housing spectrum change, because what I'm hearing at the government level right now is we understand that this may not, we know it's not linear. People can go back and forth on this, but because we're looking at more on a purpose builds or where people are at, we may see spectrum change, but for now, we're going to say this is the current spectrum. I'm going to start with clarifying some terms, because there's words that are sent out there, and it causes a lot of confusion sometimes in the public. So attainable housing, this is what we've adopted, is that housing is affordable to the income level of the household, available at the time, appropriate to the circumstances of the individual or family, and achievable or actionable. Then we flip to affordable housing, which is part of the attainable housing. And these are rental units constructed since 2002, in which rents are maintained at or below 80% of average market rent for at least 20 years. And they're both in the community housing and private market. And then the third term is what we hear is community housing, and it's synonymous with social housing. And it is owned and operated by nonprofit housing corporations, housing cooperatives, municipal governments, and district social services and boards. And it offers RGI or moderate market rents for eligible households. It just came to light the last couple of weeks again, is there seems to be, when we talk about affordable housing builds, that is what is 80% of market rent, and it's about the build. But housing that's affordable is really usually sometimes confused with community housing, which is 30% of the income, and it's about the person, not the build.
Through the mayor, could ask you a question?
Yeah.
What is the importance of the year 2002?
Yeah, it's just when they adopted the legislation on it.
Oh, okay,
Yes.
that's fine.
Yeah. The role of our social services department. So this is a local department. We are a consolidated municipal service manager. We have a provincial designation, and we are one of 47 service managers in Ontario. My job is to administer social services to residents in Stratford, Perth County, and areas. And under our portfolio, we have housing, homelessness and housing stability, Ontario Works, Children's Services, and Nan Pathway.
So in the housing division, as a service manager, we oversee the Housing Access Center, which manages a centralized waiting list for rent geared to income housing to determine eligibility and process applications. We also provide oversight and support to community housing providers, the 323 units, both rent geared to income and market rent. That would cover off like our co-ops in the community. We administer support programs, including rent supplements, housing allowances, and multiple housing benefits. We also administer federal and provincial affordable housing programs, such as the Investments in Affordable Housing, Social Infrastructure Fund, and Ontario Priorities Housing Initiative. And then as a landlord, we oversee the day-to-day operations of Perth and Stratford Housing Corporation, which owns and operates 663 rent geared to income units in Stratford, St. Mary's, Bristol, Atwood, Mitchell, and Overton. And when we look at our homelessness response for the service area, this includes the use of short-term stays in local motels, funding costs to assist with homelessness prevention, things like moving, last month's rent deposits, rent and utility arrears. And we also provide housing-based supports for households experiencing homelessness or who are at risk of becoming homeless. Our supported housing and intensive case management programs provide intensive case management to high acuity households experiencing homelessness, or again, who are at risk of experiencing homelessness. And through the coordination with community partners, we have established a quality by name list, which helps us to identify how many individuals are experiencing homelessness within their service area. And also, also identifies the type of homelessness a person or family is experiencing and the depth of need that they have for support with exiting homelessness. So we want to take a quick look at the assessment of housing need and demand. We could just flip to the next slide, please. This gives a little bit of a snapshot of the service manager area population. Obviously with the greatest growth in North Perth at 18%, and this is based on 2021 census data. If we go to the next slide, it goes into income and poverty. So in 2021, the median total household income in the service manager area was 84,000 compared to 91,000 in Ontario. And the proportion of persons living in low income based on the low income measure of the LIM was 9.1%, which was actually a decrease since 2016 when it was at 11.1%. And the highest proportion was in Perth East at 10.3% and the lowest in Perth South at 7.2%. So a really quick snapshot within the service manager area that takes a look at dwellings by structural type and the household composition. And we can see that the highest household composition on average makes up 2-person households. If we flip to the next slide, it gives a little further breakdown of the numbers. So what it shows is that the housing stock is primarily made up of home ownership, and most of those households are of a working age. Again, 2021 census data.
This slide just gives us something we all know, the housing values from 13 to 2023. Steady increase. And these are the average market rents. So the CMHC average market rent versus the approved alternative average market rent. What I'm going to side note here is every year we try to put in for an approved alternative average market rent because we understand the variables or the demographics that CMHC uses does not we have a different housing market. So we don't have high density apartment buildings or what else is made up as a lot of 1-bedroom apartments. So when we get the CMHC numbers, they're not really reflective of their demographic. So we have staff that go out and do a market study on what we're seeing as rental availability. And we come back with the numbers and we put a business case into CMHC and get approved. So in this is 2021, these are what we were approved at. So most notably, like bachelor's is 718 is the CMHC, but we are finding that they're really averaging about 1,050. As well as significantly the 3+ bedrooms is 1,499 and we're seeing that it's more at 1,894. So we do a business case every year to ensure that what they're using as a provincial means to calculate, we do it at a regional level.
Could I quick ask a question? On say the 1-bedroom there is it's went down a little bit, but how much would a person have to make per hour to be able to afford that?
No, I think that's coming up on a slide that will hopefully, yes, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Aitchison has a question too.
So I can sort of answer my question. So these are actually from 2021.
Yes.
Because I'm looking at those market rents going, yeah, no, they're way low.
Yes.
Honestly, like I know people right now trying to rent and it's like 2,500 a month. And it disappears so fast they can't get it. They don't say yes quick enough.
Yes, through the warden. We will show you the vacancy rates and that they are problematic for this area, but we recognize this is a national provincial problem, but we will see through the graphs that it is problematic, but vacancy rates and how high they are going. So, yeah, there's a vacancy rates right there, and 3% benchmark is healthy, it's, you know, to the degree, but we can see that we're well below that. And so the need is definitely there. And to Councillor McDermott, this will show the cost to ratio income and the problems we are having to rent and own. It's because the percentage of households spending more than 30% of or more of their income on shelter costs is significant throughout the county. A household is said to be in need of poor housing, if the housing falls below at least one of the adequacy, affordable, or suitability standards, and it would have to spend 30% or more of its total income before tax to pay the median rent of alternative local housing that is acceptable, and that meets the need of all standards. Adequate housings are reported to be the residents as not requiring any major repairs. Affordable dwelling costs less than 30% of the total before tax household income. Suitable housing has enough bedrooms for the size and makeup of the resident's household according to the national occupancy standard requirements. So this shows again what our core housing needs are. And this slide again shows example that we put is a single person on Ontario Works. They would receive $733 per month. And at our alternative food market rate, it's $1,050, so it's 143% of their income. And I will note down here, the living wage has gone up to $20.70 per hour. So the monthly income for someone making the living wage of $3,140 per month, it's for a bachelor unit, it's still 33% of their income. So even at the living wage, they're paying.
So as I had mentioned in an earlier slide, the housing division manages the waitlist for rent geared to income housing. And as of December 31st, 2022, there were 505 applicants on that waiting list. Now, the highest demand for one bedroom and the bulk of these applications are people who are applying from within our service area.
I do want to make a note with the understanding that people can apply all across Ontario to our service area. We are finding that most are within our service area that are applying for rent geared to income housing.
So when we talk about the by name list, this is the important information that we are able to capture through those assessments because it helps to guide the programs and services that we offer. So from that data, we're able to understand that 93% of these individuals, I should flip over here. So as of December 31st, 2022, 129 households were experiencing homelessness in the service manager area, and 93% of those individuals were experiencing chronic homelessness. 16% identified as First Nation, Inuit, Métis, or as having Indigenous ancestry. 52% identified as male, 39% identify as female, 5% identify as non-conforming or chose not to answer that question. And then in terms of household composition, 64% of those individuals are single adults, 22% are youth, and 14% are families. And then if we look at level of acuity, 70% of those individuals or families are at that high acuity point. And so just so that you understand, level of acuity is measured using the pre-screening tool known as the Service Prioritization Decision Assistance Tool, or the VI-SPDAT. And it measures the health and social needs of households experiencing homelessness and helps to identify the depth of need for support someone is experiencing.
I'm just going to add to this. So this is a problematic in the sense that many of these individuals, if housed, we acknowledge will need supportive housing in order to be housed successfully. So it's just not a matter of rehousing them. We have to look at what supports can be in place to help them maintain their housing.
Service manager area has income levels that are below provincial medians, an increase in the proportion of households living in low income, population that is aging and projected to grow at a slower rate than the province, population groups that are especially vulnerable to housing instability, including Indigenous peoples. Since the original plan was published in 2014, the area has seen a rise in housing costs, both rental and ownership, a decrease in the availability of rental units, and an increase in the number of applications for rent geared to income housing. As part of our 10-year housing and homelessness plan, there are 4 objectives that come out of that plan, which we will address. Strategic objective number 1 speaks to ending homelessness. We first launched a Housing First program known as the Supported Housing of Perth program, or more commonly known as SHOP. We have expanded the City Social Services Outreach Worker Program and established a new position known as the Intensive Housing and Community Outreach Coordinator. We have introduced the community-wide screening tool for determining level of acuity for housing supports, which is the VI-SPDAT. And we've conducted 2 homelessness enumerations and achieved that quality by name list, which provides real-time reliable data. Recommended activities from 2020 to 2024 were to implement a coordinated access system for homelessness services, implement HIFAS 4 for improved data management and community planning, develop coordinated mobile outreach across the service manager area, strengthen eviction prevention programs, move towards housing focused emergency accommodation, and provide a range of homelessness programs to address all levels of need.
Our second strategic objective is creating attainable housing options, which will increase the range of housing options that is available that are supportable, appropriate, achievable, and to meet the people's needs, situations, and choices. The first bullet indicates supported in construction of 72 affordable rental units since 2014 and the service areas that they were developed. The second one shows that we supported 49 households in the Affordable Home Ownership Program. And we've also introduced 76 new rent supports through a variety of programs and funding. What is great on the cusp right now, we started taking applications last Friday for the Britannia builds. So can I get to the next?
Oh, sorry, Christine's actually running your slide.
Keep looking at you. The Britannia Street Affordable Housing Builds, and we have people throughout the county applying for this. The first Britannia project was completed in 2019, and the second is this year. We're hoping for June. Both buildings tackle the issue of affordable housing, and this is what we're seeing in the media right now, and focus on individuals, families with an income of less than $55,000 a year. With this, we are adding ideally a community garden to this one and shared spaces. And for a 1-bedroom apartment in an affordable housing build will be $1,002 plus hydro, and an application may qualify with an income of $33,960 to $47,568. And rent for a 2-bedroom unit will be $1,190 plus hydro, and an application will qualify with an income of $39,999 to $54,576. So again, I go back to the first statement, one of the first statements I had. This is a build, so it's about the project, and it's not necessarily, you can see the income is like a medium income to qualify for affordable housing build. Some of the other things we're looking at is local municipalities identified the attainable housing as a priority in the strategic plan. So we've seen that throughout the county. We've gathered data to better reflect the local situation. We've achieved ministry approval for the alternative average market rent to enhance housing allowance limits for low income households. So one of the advantages, and I'm going to try to say this with it, is why we do the alternate average market rate is when we add a subsidy to someone in the private market, we are able to give them a deeper subsidy because we acknowledge that the rent that we're seeing is higher. So if we cut the, I'm just throwing numbers out, we're pretending it was $900 through CMHC and the housing was $600, then we could only give a $300 subsidy, but by having it, acknowledging that it's $1,000, then we are able to give the individual a $400 subsidy. So it does benefit the individuals in need of housing because we can deepen the subsidies available to them. We've also hosted sessions, providing tools to increase capacity to understand the need to attainable housing and to support successful tenancies. What we're going to do and our plan for 2020 to 2024 is we're going to leverage municipal, provincial, and federal funding sources to create more attainable housing. We're going to continue to develop data gathering strategies to help us understand the local housing supply and costs. We're going to continue to engage landlords to increase private market housing options. We're going to explore the feasibility of establishing a community-wide online inventory of available rental housing. And we're going to continue to collaborate with our municipal and economic development partners to develop incentives for building attainable housing.
Councillor Aitchison.
Just before you get away from that last slide, it can be a pass, but so I know of all kinds of houses that could be rented in the rural areas, like surplus farmhouses, et cetera. The problem is the way the landlord tenant act is set up. It's almost impossible to deal with a less than ideal rental, I think is the way I'll phrase that. And they have said to me, I have no intention of renting that house out when I can't deal with the problems. Are you aware of any potential changes to the landlord tenant act coming in the future?
Through the warden, I am not.
But that is a huge issue.
Yes.
There are definitely properties out there that could be rented. They have no intention of doing it until things change.
So through the warden, I acknowledge that what we've tried to do is a strategy, and it's not ideal, but I would say 10 years ago we did not have workers attached, support workers. It mitigates some of the issues, but it's still, when it really comes down to it, it does fall landlord tenant,
And therein lies the problem, because
Yes.
the landlord has virtually no rights.
So what we can do is attach a support, but that does not. How do you usually say it? We can't control behavior. Like we can
control
do
behavior. Yeah,
yes.
Yes, we can put a lot of plans in place and we can make referrals to a number of support services, and we can certainly mitigate a number of issues. But at the end of the day, we cannot control people's.
He just thought I'd bring it up. So maybe that's something when you talk to the province, you might suggest.
Thank you.
Strategic objective number 3, sustaining community housing involves ensuring that existing community housing stock is well maintained and continues to play a key role in the delivery of permanent RGI housing locally. As a result, we have completed operational reviews of all local nonprofit and cooperative housing providers to gain a better understanding of how to support their sustainability. We've leveraged over $1.2 million in funding to make improvements at community housing properties. And we've also leveraged over $200,000 in funding to provide transitional funding to community housing providers that are reaching end of operating agreements. The recommended activities from 2020 to 2024 under this objective are to negotiate the end of operating agreements with local nonprofit and cooperative housing providers, update service manager directives to reflect new legislative changes, support community education and advocacy efforts regarding community housing sector, leverage funding sources at all levels for capital repairs and stock regeneration, and build capacity in sector to enhance providers' ability to operate efficiently and effectively. Strategic objective number 4 speaks to addressing a diversity of needs, providing a broad range of services and supports that reflect the unique local landscape and in an inclusive and culturally appropriate way, including advancing truth and reconciliation with Indigenous peoples. Recommended activities are to implement activities to inventory existing supported housing and/or housing-based supports, strengthen partnerships with organizations across sectors to address the housing needs of specialized population groups, improve access to services for residents in rural parts of the service manager area, conduct mapping exercises to understand and improve upon service users' experience of navigating systems, and build local capacity to strengthen relationships and provide supports to Indigenous communities and peoples.
So I want to just talk about the importance of community collaboration and what we've worked with in the last few years. And this is specifically what I've noted here is through the pandemic and the importance of our partnerships with multiple agencies in order to get to the end goal, because we realize we cannot do this alone as the CMSM. So some of the programmings that we've rolled out or achievements is we built action centers that will be a resource for homelessness, is a homelessness hub. We've implemented the coordinated access, which is having our community partners sit at a table for addressing these issues together, coming up with quality binding us. So we know it's become very evidence-based decisions. We know how many people are homeless. We know we understand their needs. We know what type of housing they need, so that when the province or the feds come with funding, we're able to quickly say this is where our core needs are, and be able to put in applications to meet those needs, whether it be through programming or builds. And we've also worked with the community, North Perth and St. Mary's, and put community developers in there so that there's someone on the ground employed by those municipalities that we liaise with and partnership with, so that we have a finger on the pulse where the areas and needs are. And I'm hoping through Mike's presentation later that we continue. Strong. We've worked with the other things that have come since pandemic is we've enhanced the MCERT program, the mental health response workers with the police in the OPP, as well as Stratford. We've a nurse practitioner as well as pharmacist will go out with workers within our community housing workers buildings to help address needs as well. So we are really reaching out to our partners and trying to collaborate and leverage funding so that we are taking a proactive measure in addressing individuals' needs. Any questions?
Any questions? Councillor Duncan?
Yeah, thank you, Through Warden. One of your early slides, I think the number was 505 people on your list. And am I correct in saying over 30% of those people aren't from this area that have applied? Well, I look at that as, is the province aware that that's a strategy that people are using to find housing, applying anywhere they can to get housing?
Through the warden, yes, and this comes up quite often. And it's how the legislation is written, that they have the right to apply anywhere in the province.
So in that case, we, as a county, we're in a rock and a hard place trying to solve the problem. And I hear this comment from people quite frequently. We've lived here all our lives and we can't get housing. So is the province going to step forth with funding for us to house anybody that applies that wants to move here?
I do, and it's the same as if we have individuals that are wishing to move to Thunder Bay or to Ottawa. So that's how the current, it is written, that you have the right to apply anywhere on Ontario.
So I guess secondary to that, do all municipalities or counties put forth the same amount of effort and funding into their programs that you run here as our program?
Is that provincially?
So, okay, I guess I'll rephrase that. Does the province provide equal amounts of money? Or is it based on a per capita?
It's based on ratio, yeah, per capitas, and so yes, I would say. For the most part, it would be equivalent.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions? Seeing no questions, thank you very much, Kim and Kelly, for your presentation, and the rest of your staff who are here today. It's very interesting and brings us up to date. So thanks again for coming.
Thank you for having us.
Okay, we have a motion that council receives the Stratford Social Housing Services Housing Program presentation for information. Moved by Councillor Trankowski, second by Councillor Kassenberg. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, and our next presentation is Peter Bowen from the Spruce Lodge home. And Peter, if you'd like to come up and the chair, and then
Right over here.
yep, that's good.
Sean. God. I hear you're the slide flicker.
Normally, yes, but today, through the warden, it's going to be Tristan right behind you there.
Yeah, well, good to be here, everyone. Thanks for the invitation. Lori sent the invitation along, and so I've been chatting with Ray and Sean. And asked to do an orientation of Spruce Lodge campus. So I've done that, plus I've added some flavor related to the 2023 budget. So Tristan, you're going to flip quickly. Okay. So we're going to go over a bit of the history, and then of course, we're a values-based organization. We'll touch on that, a little bit about our logo, about the campus, and then the municipalities and the governance. And then, as I say, information related to the 23 budget and the overall state of affairs of the campus. But again, Tristan, okay. So the lodge itself dates back to a house of refuge, as I guess probably many people know. House of refuge, they were all over the province serving indigent population of all sorts. And in the mid-40s, they changed to homes for the aged and focused on seniors. And then eventually on disabled adults. So Spruce Lodge itself used to actually be that building. That building was labeled Spruce Lodge at one point in time, 55. Then it was rebuilt in 65. And renovated in 1992 to what's called a Category A long-term care home, which is the highest category, albeit it was designated a Category A home before the design standards were put out for the Category A homes in 1998. So it's not quite up to snuff as far as other Category A homes. The towers started in the mid-80s, again with the intent of preventing people from having to move into long-term care that really just needed a place to live and some supports. The Tower 1 in 85, Tower 2 in 1990, and then Tower 3 is 2009. That was a mix of life lease and affordable housing, and we'll get to that in a minute. And then Hamlet Estates at the bottom of the screen that you can't see was 1992, I believe it started. So we'll go to the next slide, Tristan. So again, I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but the lodge itself is a values-driven organization. And so we do have a mission statement, and the mission statement does indicate that it's more than just a place to live. It's for accommodation and services. And we try to sort of feather that into all the elements of the continuum that we have on campus. We have a vision statement of focusing on people, being people first organization, so that the people that are involved in the decisions that affect their quality of life experience and their quality of work experience on campus. And we use these values. There's of course a bazillion values out there, but we paired them with our people first statement, and we use those values for the purposes of recruiting staff, looking for people that are friendly, inspired by the work they do, focused on the needs of the residents, and that they're solution oriented as opposed to problem oriented, and that they're team players. Like Tristan. We have a logo. The logo is really a geometric depiction of a spruce tree that was created decades ago. But we brought it to life a few years ago in an effort to help staff and volunteers sort of appreciate where they fit in the whole picture. And we share this with staff, volunteers, and new families as they join the campus. So as you can see in the middle, heart and soul of the operation are the staff and volunteers and all the various different departments. At the pinnacle of everything that we do are the people, the customers that we serve at the top of the tree. And then as much as all staff can think that we can do things on our own, we have pillars of support. We have leadership pillars of support, be that community partners or our governance and management structures. So you won't see any of that verbiage on our logo ever again, but everybody knows it works on the campus and lives on the campus. That's really what the intent is to make sure that residents are first and staff who are anchored by those pillars of support. Kristen. The campus itself, I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with the campus, but we have about 9 acres of land. And the top of the page is the south end, the bottom of the page is the north campus. On the south end is Hamlet Estates, and we're going to just quickly go through each of those elements in a minute. 67 Lex home. Middle of the page, dark is Spruce Lodge. Units ABC were added in 1992 in the facility redesigned. And then at the bottom of the page is the Woodland Towers 1, 2, and 3. And also embedded in the towers is a one water therapy pool. Pre-pandemic, that therapy pool was used to allow swimming lessons with kids and so on. But now it's really just for the benefit of the folks that live on the campus. Again, the continuum. So we're going from independent living in Hamlet Estates through to Woodland Towers that has obviously some folks that are fully independent, but then others that are receiving support services. So we call that supported independent living, right through to those that are dependent on long-term care services. Lodge. And this is a picture of Hamlet Estates from John Street as you enter. And then the elements of Hamlet Estates, it's market value likely, so it's a lot like a nonprofit condominium. People purchase the right to occupy. They don't actually purchase the unit, they purchase the right to occupy. For those over the age of 55 years, albeit I don't know if we've had anybody under 60 yet. 67 single-story garden homes. People pay a monthly maintenance fee, like a condo fee, and property taxes. They're virtually maintenance-free, which means that the corporation itself takes care of their roadways and building structures and roofs and the heating systems, cooling systems, that sort of thing. And the folks that live there, they have the opportunity to, maintain gardens if they wish. And then obviously the inside of their suites, it is independent living. Folks that live in Hamlet Estates walk over and participate in the planned activities that take place over at Woodland Towers. At Woodland Towers, we have a seniors active living center that services the people that live on campus, as well as some that come from the community. And they have access to that warm water therapy pool that I mentioned. And they also have access to a support services manager that has a nursing background that's able to connect them to community services as they need them to enable them to continue living independently. Thanks, Tristan. And then this is a picture, sorry, I'm buzzing through this, but this is a picture of Woodland Towers, 2 in the background, 3 in the foreground. Actually, that's 1 in the background, 2 in the foreground, and 3 in the foreground, and 2 is in between. Tristan. And the towers are for disabled adults, those over the 65 years. 65 years because they're social housing buildings, and social housing defines the seniors as over the age of 65. And disabled adults because at the time the towers were built, there wasn't any housing for disabled adults in Stratford. So they expanded the mandate to include both populations. There are, as I mentioned, 3 apartment towers with 131 apartment units in total, with any kind of rent that you can imagine. So there are some folks that are paying market rent, and even market rent. There are 2 tiers of market rent now. There's rent geared to income for the buildings that have rent geared to income programs. So it's towers 1 and 2 right now, and affordable rent, which means that people are when they moved in pay a rent that was set at an affordable level when the building was constructed in 2009, thanks to capital contribution when the building was built. And then they're controlled by rent control, and they're for people that are in specific income categories. And then, of course, life lease was because Tower 3 only had a certain number of affordable housing units. The building really needed to be bigger, and so it's a mix of affordable housing and light fleets, and I think the only one in the province that's like that. 24-hour emergency response call system throughout all the suites. There's something called the silent safety system, so if somebody doesn't activate their light switch at night or in the morning, we know about it, and a staff member will contact them to make sure that they're okay. Night watchman in the building. There is a congregate dining room, and everyone that lives on campus benefits from 16 meals a month. And if folks want more meals a month, they're welcome to that, but that ensures the sustainability of the program. And then there's a variety of preventative health programs. So, and many of them are listed there. Key one being medication reminders is something that we effectively are not funded to provide, but if we didn't do it, there'd be another 20 people that would be out looking for long-term care placements. Simple service, not funded by any program. And then, of course, access to the therapy swimming pool and the active living center. There's a corner store where volunteers do grocery shopping for the benefit of the folks that live there. And there's a salon and barber shop. And then for the benefit of about 20% of the people that live in the buildings, there's a 24-hour supportive housing service. So naturally, there's a waiting list for that program, but that's we have an allocation of 25 residents right now for Woodland Towers 1, 2, and 3, and we're constantly indicating that we could use more in order to keep people living independent. Thanks, Tristan. And then this is the front entrance of Spruce Lodge, long-term care home. That's Tristan. And long-term care are for people over the age of 18 years that need long-term care. So you can't move into long-term care because you necessarily want to, or because the place that you want to live, you have to actually qualify to move into long-term care. And that's all done through Ontario Health now. We're a municipal home, as you know, between the 3 partner municipalities, between Perth, the city of Stratford, and town of St. Mary's. We have the 20 long-term care means 24-hour personal care and services, and obviously housekeeping, laundry, and meal services. We're an accredited organization and have been for the past several decades. Presently with CARF Canada. It's not a requirement to be accredited, although it's a value add in the sense that it really just kind of forces the quality agenda for long-term care. And so been that way for all these years. We have 128 beds and 7 designated living areas. Now through the pandemic, the government shut down the ward accommodation in long-term care. And you wouldn't think that there'd be any ward accommodation in a category A home. We had 4 ward beds in Spruce Lodge. Again, because we were grandfathered as a category A. Those beds sat empty, have been sitting empty through the pandemic. They're presently, we either lose those beds at the cost of about $90,000 per year, or we convert private accommodation to enable 2 people to share the rooms and retain those beds. That's what our board has decided to do, and that's what we're in the process of doing. With long-term care, you can see all the various different services that are available to folks that live in long-term care. Either that's physiotherapy or rehab or palliative activity, nutrition service, nutritionists that work in the building, and pharmacists that do, medical directors, and so on. Folks that live in Spruce Lodge also have access to a warm water therapy pool located in the towers. And there are a few that participate in that program. We do have a resident council that we're required to have by legislation. And family members are invited each year to form a family council if they wish, but haven't seen the need up to this point. Thanks, Tristan. As you know, it is municipally governed, and so the county of Perth actually was the original owner of the House of Refuge, and the city of Stratford became involved in the mid-60s. Town of St. Mary's in 1978. All upper tier municipalities in the province of Ontario are required to be involved in the ownership and governance of a long-term care home. Sorry for this chart, but if you follow it from left to right, quick and easy way to describe it is that all those partnering municipalities each have 2 appointments to the Spruce Lodge Board of Directors. Those pyramid shapes are all different boards. So we've got Spruce Lodge Home for the Aged, and 6 board members made up of those council representatives. Those same board members put on a different hat, and they're also board members for the Spruce Lodge Home Assistance Corporation, which effectively governs everything that's not publicly funded. And then our Spruce Lodge Foundation, where we can receive charitable donations. And then 3 of those, so one from, we sit on the Spruce Lodge Nonprofit Housing Board of Directors. And you can see on the far right-hand side of the screen that we also have layperson appointments to the Spruce Lodge Nonprofit Housing Board. And we have 3 Towers residents that sit on that board as well, for a total of 9. And then the small box in the left corner is the Hamlin Estates Corporation, and only 1 Spruce Lodge board member sits on that board, along with 3 residents and 3 people from the Stratford and community area. And I'm involved with with all of that governing that goes on. Thanks, Tristan. So the municipal value add, there are one in 6 long-term care homes in the province of Ontario is a municipal long-term care home. So that's 100 across the province. Some municipalities have more than 1, Toronto, Region of Peel, Niagara, and so on. The municipal home mandate is for every upper tier, single tier municipality to own and maintain at least 1. And the intent, I suppose, is to keep councillors informed and able to advocate at the municipal council on other government tables for the needs of the elderly. And really, in many ways, if you look at municipal long-term care across the province, it really sets the benchmark for hours of care, higher staffing ratios, higher staff retention, and higher staff wages with municipal benefits, as compared to the not-for-profit sector of long-term care or the for-profit sector of long-term care. It's intended to be that benchmark that the rest of the sector aspires to achieve. First of all, it doesn't necessarily achieve all of that. Really, our strength is our campus, and our campus of care is probably one of the top campuses in the province. And municipal involvement ensures the voices of, I'm not sure what that says at the bottom now, but it does ensure the voices of the residents that they reach council tables, various issues that occur. And I know that's happened through the form of the pandemic, making sure that the council are well aware of what's happening in long-term care. Thanks, Tristan. So that's, I kind of thought that maybe you might want to talk about budgets. I'm not sure if that's the right thing to do or not, so we can skip these if you want, or I can just quickly touch on them. So obviously, one of the things that happened with the pandemic is all sorts of people died in long-term care. That was not the case with Spruce Lodge, fortunately, but it was clear that there were problems with staffing levels across the sector, and with infection levels, infection control, and so on. So the province came up with new long-term care legislation during the pandemic, and some of the highlights are the introduction of minimum staffing levels. So up to this point, there have been no minimum staffing levels. Everybody receives funding, but it's up to each home to decide what to do with that. So now there are these new minimums for the PSWs, RPNs, and RNs. And the minimum staffing levels started at about the average of about 2.5 hours of care per resident per day pre-pandemic. They're going to 4 hours within 4 years. So that's a significant increase. Also introducing IPAC positions, so infection prevention and control positions in every long-term care home. Good. In our case, that's a 3/4 FTE position. And the introduction of a staff quality lead position. Again, new to the sector. I'll talk about agency costs on the next slide, because that was a huge impact of the pandemic. And then I think I mentioned a minute ago, as a category A long-term care home, the lodge had some grandfathered ward beds. So we had a choice to make, either to drop the beds at a cost of about $300,000 for those 4 beds, or retain the beds and lose out on some preferred revenue in private accommodation by turning some 4 private rooms into shared accommodation for people interested in things. So the agency costs, and you may have read about this in the paper recently, there's been a big push from the provincial association that and in our case, the agency costs have gone up tenfold in 2 years. So from $200,000 to $2 million in 2 years. And we thought, oh my gosh, is that happening to everybody? It turns out it is. With the newspaper articles, and even local newspaper articles, we read that the nonprofit in the area, Tri-County, experienced the exact same pattern. And so naturally that has a significant impact on budgets. So the contributing factors, as you can appreciate, there were staffing shortages before the pandemic, as far as sourcing PSWs and RPNs. And the pandemic just made things exponentially worse. And at the same time of this, perfect storm of the pandemic, the ministry introduced minimum staffing thresholds. So everybody in this at the same time across the whole sector is trying to drive up staffing levels. Naturally, that resulted in an exorbitant use of agency. You probably all read about in the summertime how the hospitals were closing emergency departments because they didn't have RPNs, RNs, and PSWs. That was really the canary in the mine. If the hospitals are closing their emerge, long-term care can't. And so they're having to figure out how to cope in the midst of a staffing crisis. The ministry did fund. They did offer to fund and will be funding these increased levels. So going from 2.5 hours of care to 4 hours of care. Problem is their formula didn't factor in the variable known as agency costs. So agencies are 2 to 3 times the cost of regular staff. And so we are now pressing government to factor that into their formula. Agency practices and pricing not sustainable for obvious reasons. They earn more than, so here they are coming into unionized settings and telling all unionized staff what they're making, which presents all sorts of problems. There are stories of homes that have agencies recruiting their own staff in their own parking lots. It hasn't happened to us. We have had agency staff that would like to actually work for us, but there's non-compete clauses in their agreements that prohibit that from happening. So again, another issue that we're pressing government to address. As I say, agency rates double, triple the sector rates. And they're not regulated and they charge whatever the market will bear. So when we have an outbreak, the costs go up about 25% for agency use. Their rates go up about 25%. So there is need for regulation. They are literally coming out of the woodwork. We receive calls every week from a new agency offering to provide services. And we're trying to move in the opposite direction of cutting back, doing everything we can to cut back on these services. Next, Tristan. And the municipal cost apportionment. So just to be clear, the campus has those 5 separate entities that you saw about at the beginning, but the partnering municipalities only contribute to Spruce Lodge, not to those other entities, just to be clear. And the annual costs are set out in the Spruce Lodge approved budget and they're apportioned to each partner on a weighted assessment basis that's provided to them. Next, Tristan. And when it comes to the annual contributions, just to give you a sense of what they are that's the 2021 weighted assessment rates, but those are the actual levy numbers for 2022 for each of the municipalities. And you can see that our cost per bed in 2023 is 13,957. We don't have data for the average municipal cost for 2023, but way back in 2016 is 21,585. So the lodge historically has been about a third of the provincial average. And the reasons for that is because when the campus starts to defray some of the costs for the overall operation of the campus. But we also bargain in parity with the nursing home sector, not with the municipal home sector. So that makes a tremendous difference. We have also been the lowest municipal cost per bed in the province of Ontario for quite a while. The last study was done in 2017 by the Western Wardens Group, and we were the lowest at that time. Thanks, Tristan. Dang on, it's all good. One more time. So just really quickly on this one, pros and cons of the campus. Obviously, it's an affordable continuum. That's the nice part about this continuum. If you look at a lot of other continuums, there are elements of the continuum where you really do need to have money and equity in order to live there. So in each element of our campus, we strive to keep it affordable in policy ways. Campus does enable aging in place. We have all sorts of people that move from Hamlet to Woodland and then the Spruce Lodge. We have people that are moving into Woodland Towers because their spouses moved into Spruce Lodge. So the campus really works very well. It does enable economies. It's got we have an excellent reputation and have had with the ministry for decades and with stakeholders, but we absolutely need to do more. The sector's, the limelight is on the sector now and the spotlight's on the sector now, and our models of care that are out there that are much better than what we have. They're much more expensive though. They're very staff intensive and ocean focused care. They do work and we are exploring them. But again, we have to advocate to government to get government to support the change to the models of care. Wages are, so it's a plus minus that wages are competitive with the former nursing home sector in the sense that, well, there's only one way for them to go, right? Through the arbitration process. And the ministry implements the staffing thresholds. That's a pro in the sense that it is driving up staffing levels. It's a con in the sense it's hard to find staff right now, but we will get there with time. The cons of the campus, obviously, when it comes to the housing, there's a short-term plan to deal with rent subsidy for buildings that are reaching the end of their mortgage and the end of their operating agreements, which is terrific. That's helped out tremendously for the people that are on rent guaranteed income when the buildings reach the end of their subsidy period. And so the service manager has been terrific to keep that going. But there's really no vision from the province to say how that's going to be done over the next 20 years. And in order to refinance buildings, we need long-term plans. Spruce Lodge, there's no plan to address the ward rooms in the category A long-term care. So as I say, we sort of dealt with that. The short stay beds, we had 2 short stay beds in Spruce Lodge for the benefit of people that needed to say go on a vacation and have someone move into care. Those beds have now been converted to long stay for economic reasons. In order to reduce the impact on the municipal levy, short stay beds are paid at a lower amount and they're occupied less frequently. And so we want to sort of optimize the use of those beds and have done it that way. And I guess obviously one of the cons is the unions are pursuing municipal parity and have for the last couple of rounds, and we anticipate going to arbitration, and we'll see how that unfolds. We use a third-party bargaining agent to get us through that process and have for the last several decades. Yeah, new staffing threshold require. I can't remember what that was. Oh yeah, basically require greater attention to the funding formula. Because in order to drive up staffing thresholds, people have to come from somewhere. We don't have staff, and neither does the ministry have staff sitting on their pandemic shelves. So it'll take some time. So in summary, just really quickly, we're a value-based organization managing 326 units of accommodation, serving more than 400 people, employing more than 200 staff in the various different departments, overseeing 5 separate corporations of about $14 million. Lori, I know I buzzed through that, but I wasn't sure how much time we'd have and how many questions you might have. And if you have questions, Ron and Jim, Jerry know it all. And Sue, yeah.
Okay, questions, Peter? Councillor Orr?
Through the warden, thank you, Peter, for your presentation. I have actually 3 things. When it comes to the agencies, what is it that we as a council could do for you?
Well, I suppose one thing that we could do is look to advocate to the province to do something about regulating agency. So perhaps a letter coming from council to the Ministry of Long-Term Care. I mean, really the solution to agency in many ways is adjusting that formula in the short term.
Second question is just around Hamlet Estates. I'm sorry for the question, but let's say somebody bought into Hamlet Estates 10 years ago, they paid $200,000. They could probably double, triple it. Is that helpful for you, or is they made a good investment?
It's helpful to Hamlet. It's helpful to Hamlet. So all those corporations are separate. So the monies don't get mixed. So if Hamlet does well, it doesn't benefit the rest of the campus necessarily. There's it benefits modestly. There is a transfer fee that happens when people move out of life lease. It's 6% transfer fee. So if the value goes up from 200 to 600,000, that's 6% of the 600,000. And you're right, the equity values have skyrocketed in a few years. And whether or not they'll level off as the rest of real estate has, they could well do that.
All right. And then last question, what is the waiting list for long-term care?
I haven't seen it since the pandemic, but we have the longest waiting. We have always had the longest waiting list in Perth County, and was up over 100 applicants.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions? Councillor McKenzie.
This maybe isn't a fair question, and you're probably not the person I should be asking this to, but
Okay.
it ties in with what Sue just said about the waiting list. You have the longest waiting list in the county. And my question is, a number of years ago, I believe maybe was it 3 years ago, we rallied around another local nursing home that was talking about moving and actually moving to London. The province kind of solved that issue, but I've heard nothing more about what's happening there. And I don't know whether you have any insight on that. Like if we lost that out of Perth County, it would have had a massive impact on, you know, the senior residents of
There are additional beds coming to the city of Stratford now, like a building being built in the city of Stratford that will make up for those. The issue is there's a baby boom coming.
Well, I know.
But the other thing to appreciate is that most people don't aspire to move into long-term care. Most people, as was talked about earlier, we'd rather live at home with the services delivered at home. So we're starting to kind of grow in that area with the support. Our supportive housing service services the towers, but it also services a catchment area in the immediate area of our campus. That's probably more the future, and that's really the advocacy that should happen because it costs a fraction to provide a supportive housing service as opposed to building a structure.
Okay, Councillor Aitchison.
Peter and I talked the other day, so there was a private members bill introduced here just recently. In Toronto, trying to control the cost of the agencies, and Peter and I both said that's probably not going to go anywhere. But maybe now's the time to write the letter and say that County of Perth would support that bill to control the agency cost.
Would be terrific. So I can put something together for that. It's obviously very timely. Our association that we work with is Advantage Ontario, and the lodge itself even had some media attention in relation to the agency issue. It's kind of blew up in the press over the course of the last couple of weeks, where there's all sorts of attention. Significant issue out this way.
Okay, Councillor Jankowski.
Thank you, through you, Warden. I guess my question, Peter, when to perform capital projects, like to access funding from a bank or a lending institution, do you find that to be a difficult to source money from a lending institution if you had a capital project, or what's been your experience?
We have a 25-year capital reserve plan, and our goal is to have a fully funded reserve. And so we have not approached banks to borrow funds to do capital projects.
Okay.
So we don't have any experience with long-term care. With the social housing, we have approached banks to see whether or not we could refinance the building and reach the end of its operating agreement. And the banks have said that with our mix of rent geared to income and market, we wouldn't be able to sustain financing. And so that's not a solution either for social housing. So, yeah.
So, thank you.
That's where the comment came earlier, that it would be helpful to have a good long-term commitment on rent subsidy for buildings that have reached their end of operating. I don't know everybody would like to do that, but it needs to be something that the province and the federal government.
Okay, that's the reason I asked that question. A situation arose in the county where there was difficulty. The institution they were having difficulty with those arrangements, so I just wanted to see what your experience was in that regard. But it seems like there's a common underlying theme. I think this is what I was trying to determine. So
yeah, we did hear that that's how that other agency that had that tenfold increase in agency costs dealt with it. They had to dip into the reserves in order to pay for agency staff. It's totally not sustainable.
thank you.
Okay, Councillor Kassenberg.
Thank you, Warden Negetz. I'm kind of following, I think, on.
There we go.
Oh, sorry, having internet problems this morning, but thank you, Warden Negetz. I picked up what I felt was kind of an ominous line in one slide of your presentation, which is about the sort of social housing and the end of mortgage agreements and so forth. And I guess this kind of builds on Councillor Trentowski's previous question. What kind of modeling, what kind of scenario stuff are you doing at this point? I mean, you seem to indicate that there could be problems with financial institutions in terms of trying to remortgage or leverage. So what's happening, and is there some kind of role that the county needs to play in supporting that effort?
Maybe more of a question for our service managers that were presenting earlier, but I know in our case with the building that did reach the end of its operating agreement, it was a federal housing building. And so, as I said, the service manager has been terrific in getting and ensuring that we have rent subsidy in order to support the people that are currently living in the building. But in the absence of a long-term commitment, we can't use that to leverage financing. And so we're having to now look at our market rents and converting units to a higher end market rent in order to drive up revenue, and looking to vacant units and converting those to market rent units, just to drive up the bottom line, make the building more viable on its own.
If I might, that doesn't feel like a good news story. I mean, I'm sure that there are people who are residents there who have generally fixed incomes because they're seniors, and here we are. They are facing new pressures potentially in the costs of their living, which don't seem quite comfortable to me.
Yeah, sorry, I maybe misstated that, but it does not have any impact on the people currently living on the project. It's just those that will be moving into the project will be paying higher market rents.
But if I might, one more comment then, but that creates a sense of inequity within the community, if you will, right? Because those new people coming in are facing quite different rates than those who are there. And you know, when you think about this kind of housing, you'd like to think that there's a certain degree of equity available to all those who are living there. Just an observation.
Yeah, I mean, the buildings themselves have been operating for 30, 40 years, and there's always been inequity in what people face. That's the nature of rent geared income. And so we do have some that are paying rent geared income, some that are paying market rents, and suppose if people choose to share what they're paying with others, then yeah, perhaps that feeling of inequity might happen, but that's not been our experience.
Okay, Councillor Aitchison.
Was just further to Peter Boland's answer there. So one of the issues I used to sit chair the not-for-profit, we still try to maintain, or I shouldn't say that I'm not on the board anymore. However, we went to try and maintain that 30% social housing factor, but the only way we could do that was to take some of the market rents higher. And the other problem we were facing was over the years, because of the financing arrangements between the province and the feds, the one that expired was the feds. And the next one's maybe 3 years away, Peter.
That's right, yeah.
We were restricted as to what we could put in reserves for capital expenditures, and I mean really restricted. More so in one than the other. So that's why there will be issues. Maybe if you need to do some work, there will need to be some financing, because we weren't allowed to build up a capital reserve as we were for, say, for long-term care.
Yeah, we were able to do that we have been able to do that in Tower 2, the one that came from the province, because our service manager is more directly involved in Tower 2. And so they recognize that if we're able to generate a surplus, which we can do, even not-for-profit doesn't mean operating for loss. So where we can generate a surplus, we will, and we'll drive that toward our capital reserves. And so, but we have to receive service manager approval to do that, because those funds technically could go back to the service manager. They have enabled projects that hold on to those funds and put them in reserve to deal with that problem that you just mentioned, Jen. Tower 1, that wasn't the case because federal building. Problem. The feds wanted their money back here every year.
Okay, other questions? No, okay. We did have a couple comments here about sending letters from council. Sue made one about the council adjustment formula, and Counselor Aitchison talked about the private members bill. We need a motion from council to give staff direction or.
Certainly through the warden, it'd be great if you could give staff direction to work with Mr. Boland to produce that letter and then to have the warden sign it.
Okay, there's two letters, I believe.
Yes, two.
Correct. Okay, so Counselor Aitchison, you want to move that? Seconder, Counselor Orr, all in favor? Eric. Okay, thanks, Peter.
Again,
Good seeing you.
invite for your involvement and support over the years. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion that council receives a Spruce Lodge presentation for information. Moved by Counselor McKenzie, second by Counselor Jankowski. All in favor? Carried. Okay, we're going to take a little short break for 5 minutes and everybody stretch their legs. Our first report, staff report is under planning and it's OPA number 211. And John, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Warden Higgins and council. Since we've had the public meeting now for the OPA 211, and no comments were received from any members of the public. Staff's recommendation remains as to approve the OPA 211. Instead of getting into the presentation again, we'll just leave it at that.
Okay, thank you. Are there any more questions from council? See no questions. We have a motion that council receives the Perth County Official Plan Amendment number 211-Read Report for lands described as Part Lot 12 and 13, Concession West Mitchell Road as RP 44R-3428, Part 1. Fullerton Ward, Municipality of West Perth, and that council approved the official plan amendment to 11 for the County of Perth official plan. Moved by Councillor McKenzie, second by Councillor Trinkowski. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, thanks, John. Then we're going to move to corporate services, and the first item is the January 23 forestry inspections report. And Sean? Where's yours?
Thank you. Through the warden to council, this is just the standard monthly forest inspector report. For the month of January, Marvin Smith completed 14 inspections and the details of those inspections are in the report. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to receive them and forward them to Marvin.
Okay, any questions of the report? Seeing no questions, we do have a motion that council receives the January 2023 forestry inspectors report for information. Moved by Deputy Warden Kellum, second by Councillor Kassenberg. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, the next item is a collection policy report from Stratford Perth Archives, and Betty Jo's joined us this morning. Betty Jo, the floor is yours. Welcome.
Thank you, Warden Eggets, and good morning, everyone. The report that you have from Archives today is an updated and somewhat expanded collections policy for Council's consideration. The aim of this policy is to guide the staff here at the Archives when we appraise and accession materials for the Archives collections and the research library, as well as the long-term management of those materials. A separate preservation policy, which was approved in 2020, gives us more detailed guidance on things like rules for researchers handling materials. The collections policy includes a commitment that staff conduct their work in accordance with the Association of Canadian Archivists Code of Ethics and Professional Conduct. And this has also been listed for the last several years in our business plan as part of our the way that we conduct our practice. The last significant update to the collections policy was in 2007, which is longer ago than I like to think. Like the 2007 version, this one outlines what the Archives is responsible for bringing into our holdings and how we can provide good stewardship for those collections. It's a more comprehensive policy addressing reference items in the library described in the PCIN Union Catalog for all Perth County libraries, as well as archival records from local governments and community members. It reaffirms the Archives' primary mandate to ensure that key evidence of local government decisions and historically significant records of individuals, families, organizations, and businesses in Stratford and Perth County are preserved and made available for research for as long as possible. So thank you for your time today. Warden, through you, if there are any questions or concerns about the proposed policy, I'll certainly do my best to address them.
Okay, thanks, Betty Jo. Any questions of the report? Seeing no questions, we have a motion that council receives a collections policy report from Stafford Perth Archives for MSSC meeting on March 16th, 2023, and that council approve the report for submission to the MSSC meeting of March 16th, 2023. Moved by Councillor Smith, second by Councillor McDermott. Any more comments or questions? All those in favor? Carried. Thanks, Betty Jo. Okay, we're going to move to the PAO court report. And before we do that, I'd like to welcome Vicki Hamilton. Vicki has been taking the position now of the manager of the court services. She has worked for the county for several years, and congratulations, Vicki, on your new position. So the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Warden Agates and members of council. This report provides an update on activities at the Provincial Offences Court Service Office to the end of January 2023. I am seeking council's approval so that this report can be given to Municipal Shared Services. Court staff continue to schedule early resolution meetings and trials. Our staff is caught up and currently scheduling cases that are about 2 months old.
What happened to me?
Our courts have been opened until the end of the year by the Regional Senior Justice of the Peace. Discussions have continued about school bus safety with a number of agencies. If anyone has any further questions about the administrative penalties program, please direct your questions to Annette Diamond. I have provided you with tables that show a comparison of the last 7 years for charges filed and fines collected for the month of January for each year. Revenue in January included the collection of a $75,000 fine under the Occupational Health and Safety Act. The pending caseload and court appearance tables speak to the increase in court activity and increased workload for staff. The final table is the calculation for percentage of net revenue to be distributed based on the actual location of the offense for which fines were paid in the month of January 2023. This ends my report. Please let me know if there are any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Vicki. Any questions from members of council? Seeing no questions, we have a motion that council receives the POA Court Services Report for MSSC and operational update report for information and approve for the Municipal Shared Services Committee meeting of March 16th, 2023. Moved by Councillor Kassenberg, second by Councillor Orr. Any more comments or questions? All in favor? Carried. Okay, then we're going to move to the 2022 investment portfolio, and Corey, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Warden Agates and council. Essentially, this report is 2022 investment portfolio performance for Perth County. The county's investment portfolio is made up of about $9 million. It's segregated into 5 structured notes for periods of 3 to 7 years, plus an 18-month GIC. The county is in a good financial position despite a difficult 2022. 4 of the 5 notes are in positive return, and the equity markets are showing material negative returns this past year. However, the maturities are still laddered between 3 to 6 years, from dates ranging from 2026 to 2029, allowing for full participation in the multi-year market recovery into 2023 and beyond. The indicative return has been worn down from previous returns of about 7% to an average of 2.79% for December 31st, 2022. If there's any questions within the report, I'll be happy to answer them.
Okay, any questions for Corey? No questions. We have a motion that County Council receives the 2022 investment portfolio performance report. Moved by Councillor Orr, second by Councillor McDermott. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, and then we have the regular 284.09 impact for 2023. Corey?
Thanks, Warden Agates. This report essentially is providing council with information on the 2023 budget. We do provide balanced budgets, but with our financial statements, some of those items within those balanced budgets are removed for the purpose of presenting those financial statements. And essentially, it's one of those areas are transfers to and from reserves. So to take that into consideration, under the new format, the removal of those items, as well as the addition of amortization that might not be included in the budget, this would impact the net municipal position for 2023 by a decrease of about $2.4 million. And if you go to the attachment within the report, it indicates the areas of impact to get us to that $2.4 million reduction in our net municipal position. If there's any specific questions to the report, I'll be happy to answer.
Okay, any questions for Corey? See no questions. We have a motion that council receives the OREG 284/09 impact for 2023 report, and council approves report for expenses excluded from the 2023 budget as a requirement of Ontario Regulation 284/09 passed under the Municipal Act 2001. Moved by Councillor Duncan, second by Councillor Kassenberg. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, now we're going to paramedic services and the paramedic service MSSC report. Mike, the floor is yours. Where is Mike? Hiding. Okay,
What's here?
just give us a second.
He's here.
Debbie, do you want to do it? No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to put you on the spot. If I could, but I don't think so.
That's my fault. Debbie, I said, Debbie here.
Maybe we moved on to public works and we'll do John's report while we wait. Okay, John? RFP results, you ready?
Great.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Warden Eggets. Good morning, council. In late January, we issued a request for proposal for project management services for the 5 Huron-Reno and Connecting Link addition. During construction, the project management consultant will be responsible for all contract administration duties on behalf of the county. Those responsibilities would include attending all project and site meetings, administering change orders, change directives, and supplemental instructions, payment certificates, coordinating all consultants and the general contractor to keep the project on track with schedule and budget. It also provide and complete all required documentation during the project and at closeout. We received 7 submissions to the RFP, which were evaluated by a committee of county staff and the prime design consultant, Mayhew. The report indicates the criteria and weighting used in the evaluation and also outlines the broad ranging costs for the project management services. Artis Engineering and Design received the highest ranking of the evaluations, and staff are recommending that they be awarded the contract for project management services for the 5 Huron-Reno and Connecting Link addition project. Their personnel have provided project management services, engineering and design on other major county facility projects, including the courthouse campus. I would note that that was with a different firm. Their knowledge and experience with the site and buildings will be a benefit throughout this project. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions for John? No questions? Okay, we have a motion that council receives the RFP results project management services for 5 Huron-Reno and Connecting Link project report, and that council awards the contract for project management services for the 5 Huron-Reno and Connecting Link project to Artis Engineering and Design, and that council directs the warden and clerk to execute the agreement between the corporation of the county of Perth and the Artis Engineering and Design. Need a mover, moved by Deputy Warden Callum, second by Councillor Aitchison. Any more comments or questions? All those in favor? Carried. Anything else, John?
Is it? Thank you.
That's it. Okay. So now we will do paramedic services, the MSSC report, and Mike, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Through the warden, we have two reports that I'm presenting today. And so the first one is our MSSC report. And this is our report that goes to MSSC during March 16th meeting, and we require council's approval to bring that report to the MSSC. So this report is a summarization of our budget process, as well as some of the information that I presented there in terms of our system pressures, which includes call volumes and time on task, offload delays, talks a little bit about COVID-19 and our paramedics as well in terms of some of the stresses that they face in terms of as healthcare providers. And a very brief update on MIH, and we talk a little about education and quality assurance and feedback. So I won't go into great details in the report. No, it's just as a summary of what council has been presented over the last little while, and as such a overarching summary for the MSSC to know what has been going on and what our plans for this year are as a paramedic service.
Okay.
With that, I'll pass it back to you, Warden. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from members of council? No questions, and we have a motion that council receives the paramedic services MSSC report, March 16, 2023 report, and that council approve the paramedic services MSSC report, March 16, 2023, to be presented at the MSSC during the March 16th meeting. Mover and a seconder, moved by Councillor Aitchison, second by Councillor McDermott. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, and our second report is the mobile integrated health program expansion. Mike?
Thank you. And through the warden, so I'm real pleased to be here today. And I have joining me at the table, Debbie Hunter and Kim McElroy from Social Services. And Debbie Hunter is, of course, our MIH manager, and that oversees our community paramedic program. And also in the room is Deputy Chief Chris Keyser, who supports our program as well. And he's in the staff section behind us. And this is an exciting opportunity that we are presenting today. And it's a partnership and a collaboration with Stratford Social Services that we will need a council approval for to enter into this partnership, and real excited to present it today. One of the things that our goals and objectives go back to is kind of like an ecosystem where everybody plays a role, and every person in Perth County does serve a role. And when we come across them in mobile integrated health, there are a whole variety of services that we can provide and needs that those persons that are accessing our services do require. So we feel by partnering with Stratford Social Services that we'll be able to do even more with what we are doing in the program. Our program's goals are to ensure equitable, accessible, responsive, and proactive and safe care in our community. And by partnering with Stratford Social Services, we would like to focus on continuing to share and to collaborate with information to make sure that people are receiving services that they need. We would like to continue to reduce any kind of wait time for services that persons might need, both medically or from a social determinants of health perspective, which means that we'd also increase, we'd be able to connect we'd be able to help persons to combat job insecurity, food insecurity, housing and basic amenities. We talked a bit about this earlier. That environmental factors, even childhood development, conflict resolution, and other non-health related services would really be able to help us in the things that we are doing in terms of taking care of individuals. And then we do have an eye on looking at reducing 911 calls, both from a police services and the EMS perspective, something that we would track. Decrease or manage emergency department visits. Sometimes we do come across people in the paramedic program and the community paramedic program that might actually require hospital intervention. So we want the right people to go to the right care at the right time. We're hoping to see some increased referrals. And then we're hoping to see if there's other interventions such as life coaching or homelessness prevention that could have an impact on the community. So saying all of that, what we'd be looking at is having an intensive case manager from Stratford Community Services join us for up to 18 months as a trial program. 100% of this is funded through our mobile integrated health funding. So it's at no extra cost to the county or to Stratford and or to any of the other municipal partners, including St. Mary's. And we would be looking at a budget of approximately 30 up to 34. Sorry, we're already receiving funding of $35,000 a month, but for a year and a half, we'd be looking at approximately $187,000. And so what we're asking is for either some dialogue today, if you have any questions, or an approval for joining into this relationship where we can work with one of the Stratford Social Services intensive case managers to support our program and the persons we serve in our community. And so with that, I will turn it back to you. Thank you, Warden.
Okay, question of the report? Councillor Smith?
Thanks, through you, Warden. Mike, do you have any indication after the 18-month period, what could happen, or will it just be an end?
I think, yes, so we'll evaluate the efficacy of the program over the 18 months. At the end of the 18 months, all of our community paramedic funding has, there are no further announcements. So all the funding ends at that point. And so when we get to that point, if the program is effective and there is more funding, then of course we evaluate it and see if we continue with what we're doing. But there's also a bigger question that's out there with respect to how the province will fund community paramedic programs in the future. And so we will address it, but I'm not sure exactly how yet.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions? Councillor McDermott?
Through the mayor. Are you hopeful that the program will, people that would go, say, maybe to the police, like that would be an intervention, would be the police, that if you do something like this, that's going to take those people, put them in a different stream? Like, is hopeful that you're making the system less expensive?
Well, through the warden, absolutely. In terms of yes, I mean, I don't know what the actual cost implications for the police services would be, but what we would hope is that
no, any services like that. Somebody doesn't have to go to the hospital.
It's about absolutely, Councillor, it's about getting the right resources to that right person. And so we do know that, you know, we are called by police services from time to time, or Stratford Social Services needs to either call the police or paramedic services on their own. But if we're with that, intensive case manager, maybe we can avoid some of those calls, and that would free them up, of course, for ourselves and paramedic services up to focus on other things. So I think indirectly, yes, that's what our hope is as one aspect of this, but there's others as well.
Okay, other questions? No more questions. We have a motion that council receives the mobile integrated health program expansion through the municipal shared service partnership with Stratford Social Services report, and that council directs staff to enter into an agreement with the Stratford Social Services to provide a full-time intensive care case manager for a pilot period of up to 18 months, funded by the Mobile Integrated Health MIH provincial funding. Moved by Councillor Kassenberg, second by Councillor Duncan. Any more comments or questions? All in favor? Carried. Okay, thank you. Now we're going to go to council reports. We do have two bylaws. Bylaw 3916/2023 OPA 211 for the Reed application. The bylaw that was in your package was incorrect. I think John did speak to that. So the correct version will be signed, and we have bylaw. Wait a minute. So we have bylaw 3916/2023 be read first, second, and third time, and finally passed this second day of March 2023. Moved by Councillor McDermott, second by Councillor Orr. All in favor? Carried. And the second bylaw is the budget adoption. So we have bylaw 3917/2023 to be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed this second day of March 2023. Moved by Councillor McDermott, second by Councillor Jankowski. All in favor? Carried. Now, there you go, Corey. Budget's done. Okay. Do we have any notice of motions? Other business? Excuse me, Lori has some business about the strategic plan date.
Thank you through the warden. Just to follow up with county council, May the 11th is a date that we set out that seems to work for a number of the council members, but we didn't hear back from everybody. So I just, before we go and book that with the consultant, May the 11th for a special council meeting for a workshop to refresh the strategic plan. And I just want to know if that's a good date that we could set that today.
Sorry, which date is that?
May the 11th.
That's a Thursday.
Be at 9. I'm pretty sure you said it worked for you.
Does it work for everyone? Councilor McKenzie?
Planting corn.
You'll be planting corn.
No, I'm not planting. If it rains, I'm wearing it.
I have the same comments as Counselor McKenzie. Depends on my other non-council duties, but we'll wait and see.
Councilor Aitchison, same thing?
Well, sort of, yes, but so that doodle poll come up for that.
Mhm.
And I tried to fill it out 2 or 3 times.
Oh,
And every time I click on something, nothing happened. And I did talk to Sarah, because there was one
Okay.
other one come out. With regards to the stewardship program, and every time I go, yep, that spot, nothing.
oh, well,
I did see where some had filled it out and had success.
Yeah.
But I had no success whatsoever.
we'll follow up on that.
So I mentioned it to Sarah at our stewardship thing the other day.
So what do you wish to do? Do you wish to gamble that you're not gonna be planting corn? And we pick May 11th for now?
Yeah, I won't hold up.
How long will it take? Do you know? Couple hours?
It's a 3 to
Three.
4 hour workshop, 3-hour workshop.
Okay. All right, so pencil in May 11th, strategic plan.
Send out a thing for the,
We'll send out a meeting planner. Can we just get a resolution for our records?
Okay, so we need a motion that we're going to have May 11th as our date for our strategic plan. Moved by Councillor McDermott, second by Councillor Orr. All in favor? Carried.
Thank you.
Okay, under announcements, Sean sent out a letter from, oh, sorry.
If I could ask, when you print these out, could you put the page numbers on the right-hand side, please? Like the agendas, like just put a page number, where they're found at.
Yeah, we do have that. So you have a copy without the page numbers?
Yeah, these
Yeah, through the word, there's 2 ways we can print them off. So we'll just make sure that when we do print them off, that they'll have the page numbers.
So yeah.
Yeah.
because otherwise we have to keep going back to our main agenda and clicking
Oh,
on.
yeah, no, we don't want you to do that.
Yeah.
We'll fix that. That's all right.
That'd be great. They're gonna fix it. So,
We'll fix it.
okay. And then the other, under announcements, the Federation of Agriculture is having their MPP Day, and it's going to be Friday, March 17th. They sent an invitation, or I'm just wondering if, I know the lower tiers all got it, and they can send 2 from the lower tier. I don't know if you want to send 2 from here as well. Or do you think that's good enough that 2 from each of the lower tiers go?
Well, you're gonna be there anyways, right?
Pardon?
You'll be there anyway.
Yeah, I'll be there anyway.
So I don't, you're kind of council, I think that would be sufficient.
Okay, I didn't know if there was someone that wanted to go that didn't get the opportunity from their lower tier because there was too many wanting to go from there. So if you're happy with it and good, we'll go with that. Okay, we'll
I
just,
think actually anyone can show up. They would like 2 representatives from each.
yeah. Okay, we'll just move that we receive that for information. Moved by Councillor McDermott, second by Councillor Smith. All in favor? Carried. Okay. Going back to, did Sally join us?
I can.
Oh, there's Sally. Morning, Sally. How are you?
Good morning. I'm okay, thank you.
You're muted. For some reason, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, we can hear you now. Good to see you. I asked Sally to come. Sally, I want to wish you and your husband Jeff, congratulations on your award for being in the top 25 of the Canada's best managed dairy farms. So those who don't know what Sally does when she's not here, she's in the barn. Like, I don't know when the woman sleeps because she really helps her husband and her family, and what a great achievement, and congratulations on behalf of council. We're very proud of your achievements and what you do in the dairy industry. So thanks again for everything you do. And
Thank you very much. Do you mind if I say a few words?
Yep.
Okay. It's really nice to be acknowledged and I appreciate that. Thank you. Jeff and I moved here to become dairy farmers, and it's a real privilege to be a farmer, to be honest, and to be in a business partnership with Steve and Karen, Steve Dolson and Karen Galbraith, who own the farm as well as us. And we have a lot of support from this ag community and the friendships and the businesses around here that we work with and get advisement from and get supplies from. And so, you know, moving to Perth was a big change for us, and it's been really great. It's been about 6 years. And I just want to take a couple minutes to acknowledge there was 4 farms in Perth County that made the top 25. And I think it's worth mentioning their names. So we were in slot 25 at Legacy Holsteins here in Atwood. Hill Manor Farms was in slot 20, and they're over in Mitchell, the Luigi family. Herdink Farms was number 7, and they're over in St. Mary's. And then the Pfister family from Mitchell also, and they're in slot number 4. So Perth County is a great place to farm, and there's a lot of good farmers out there. So thank you so much.
you're welcome. And thanks again, Sally. Congratulations. So, okay, we are going to move on now. Unless anyone else has something, well,
I think now that we know the 4 farms, I think we're only bidding that the county send a letter of congratulations to the 4 dairy farms that had outstanding ones.
Okay, that would be good. So
I'll take care of it.
can do that. Do we need a resolution, or you just will do it?
We will note it in the minutes.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Not a whole lot.
Good. Councillor Orr?
Mine's more of a question. There's a storm coming apparently tomorrow. I'm wondering what we're doing to improve the social media around storm. Just because I got stuck in London on Monday and I kept on looking for, are the roads open? Are they closed? What's the visibility and all that? I think from the last storm in December, there was just so many avenues and I didn't know which one. I was hoping for, like, are we going to have a 7 a.m., noon, and a 7 p.m. update, or what was the plan? Because I think there was a debrief from the last storm. I wondered if there was any.
There was a debrief from the last time, through the warden. I'm not sure if John, you want to speak to that, or we could, being we're here at Paramedic Services, we'll meet with Rick after the meeting, and I can send something out to council in terms of where you can look for that out of the debrief.
Yeah, I'd love to see that go out.
All right. Okay, we can do that.
Okay. Anything else anyone wishes to bring up this time? If not, we do have the confirmatory bylaw in the right spot. That bylaw 3918-2023 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council of the corporation of the County of Perth at its regular meeting held March 2nd, 2023 is read a first, second, and third time and finally passed March 2nd, 2023. Moved by Councillor Aitchison, second by Councillor McDermott. All in favor? Carried. Okay, and we adjourn at 11:14 a.m. Moved by Deputy Warden Callum. Second by Councillor McKenzie. All in favor? Carried. Thanks, everyone. Great morning. Enjoy the rest of your day.